to Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. Hi, I'm Devora Krasnianski, and I've been coaching women for a long time in all areas of life, including women in midlife. Midlife is an exciting time, but it's also confusing, and so I invite experts to join me here as we unpack this crazy and interesting time of our lives. You can join our conversations on our Facebook group, Jewish Women Talk About Midlife, and on our website, Jewish Midlife. In this episode, I spoke with Frumma Rosenberg-Gottlieb, a Torah life coach who does a lot of work with relationships. We spoke about reinvigorating the marriage relationship, especially in midlife. For so many of us, our marriage was just one of the many things we worked on in our very busy lives, and somehow it was not the priority it ought to have been. But it's never too late. Frumma shared some important mindsets and some practical tips for making our marriage great again. This is a great episode full of insights and ideas for any marriage. Enjoy. Tonight we have a really good topic. And I'm really excited that Frumma Rosenberg-Gottlieb will be talking about this important topic of making marriage great again. And what I love doing is putting out the topic in advance so that people know and invite people to come and listen as we record for the podcast, but also it gives people the opportunity to send in their questions. So we got some questions in advance. And so they're good questions, tough questions, because some marriages work out wonderfully all through the whole life of the marriage, and some people get stuck at certain points, and midlife is one of those points that some people do get stuck. So I'm excited that we're going to be talking about this. And I'm really excited that you're the one who's going to be talking about this because it's one of your favorite topics. I've heard you speak on this topic, and I've read your book. So without further ado, Frumma, let's talk about a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, thank you. So I am a relationship coach. I specialize in marriage of all relationships because I believe that marriage is the specialty of all relationships. And I've been coaching for about 15 years. Actually, in 1984, when the Rebbe started talking about the idea of having a mashpia, that everybody should have somebody that they connect to spiritually to kind of check in on their lives. That's when I started looking into coaching, and it took a few years till I found a school because it was just starting out. And so yeah, I've done a lot of I've coached a lot of coaches. I could give you a list that's quite, I look at it and I say, wow, that's pretty amazing. And my husband and I wrote a book on aging, originally called Awesome Aging. In the second edition, it's called Age Well Now. And it dispels a lot of the myths about growing older. We're more into the idea of growing wiser, growing healthier, growing happier as we age. So
it's a great book. It's an easy read, but it has so many important points. So I really recommend the book. Now let's talk about marriage. What happens to a marriage for some people at midlife, and why we're talking about making marriage great again?
So first of all, I don't think that there's anything more significant in our lives than marriage. And the idea of publicizing Hashem's name, Echad, there's only one relationship in which we have unity in all aspects of the relationship: spiritual, physical, emotional, relational, and in terms of intimacy as well. And that is marriage. Marriage, our children basically grow up on the playground that exists between our relationship with our husbands. And so many people tend to say, honey, I know you'll understand. The kids are like really needy and important right now. I'll get back to you in 20 years when they're grown up. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake, and a very, very easy mistake to make, that so many of us make, because we go for what's urgent instead of what's important. And that bond that we have with the other half of our soul is the priority in our lives. And that's where we get our health and our energy and our stamina. And I think our positive self-image and our trust, I think it all comes from building a healthy marriage.
And that's why people are always talking about having date nights all through your marriage from the very first week.
Exactly. I sometimes think about the idea of falling in love. Falling in love is cute, but keeping in love is what it's all about. And it kind of reminds me of somebody who goes and lands a fabulous job, and then they go to the office and they check in and they sit there with their feet up on the desk, not doing anything, and they can't understand why they're not getting ahead in life. Marriage is a huge commitment, emotionally, physically. It takes so much time to be married. It takes years and years and years of our lives, and not just date nights, but one of my first teachers, Yehudis Heller, she had 11 children. Her husband was the Rosh Hashiva of the Chabad Kollel. She was teaching, I believe, full-time. And she told me, every morning my husband comes home after davening, and he and I sit and have a cup of coffee together and talk about what our vision for the day is. And I was like, wow, if she can do that with 11 children, and all of her commitments, no excuse. There's just no excuse. There was a great book I read a few years ago called Essentialism. And the book mentioned the fact that until recently, there was no plural for the word priority. People didn't have priorities. They had a priority. And I believe with a full heart that the priority in our life is working on our marriages, giving it all the energy that we can to make it the best that it can possibly be. Yeah.
So we know that now, but if some of us didn't have the date nights or didn't give it the full focus that they could have, or we should have. And here we are. Now that the house is emptier, there's more time perhaps that we could be together, but we don't know how to be together.
Right. So it's no accident that we're broadcasting this on Pesach Sheni. There's a big lesson in life. It's never too late. It's never too late. One of the tools that I use with a lot of my clients is I tell them, take out your old pictures. Sit down on the couch with your husband, put the phones someplace far away, and take out those boxes of pictures, the ones that aren't even sorted yet, the ones that make you afraid when you see the big, I don't know if you have one of those boxes. I have several of those boxes, I must say. You take out the boxes and start looking at pictures and start talking to each other and treasuring the memories that you've built together, because if we don't take the time to do that, the memory isn't so present. It's easy. I like to talk about the idea of, when I talk about self-image, for example, I mentioned the fact that when I was the principal of a large school, I used to go into the preschool and I would say, who's an artist? Who can draw? And every kid raised their hands. It was just amazing. I would go into the 11th or 12th grade and say, I need some big posters done for this event we're doing. I'll write you out of class, give you passes, whatever you need to come and do it. Who's an artist? Who can draw? And suddenly, like, 2 hands went up in the room. I don't know what happened to those other 28 artists in the classroom, but they chose to spend their time comparing their pictures to other people's pictures, and I think that we tend to compare our lives, compare our husbands, compare our homes, our children, etc., and so forth to other people's lives, and in line with the same concept, when things are right, we don't produce a lot of adrenaline around it. It's not so exciting. It's just like, okay, boring day. I did everything the way I was supposed to. The dinner was on table on time. The kids got to school on time. I filled out my taxes on time. Whatever it was that needed to happen, it was done. Ho hum. That's kind of boring when everything is smooth. When things go wrong, then we produce all of this adrenaline and our heart starts pumping and we go into flight or fight pattern. And those times are the times that we tend to remember. That's where the magic marker the highlighter goes naturally. So we need to, we need to work on remembering that we own that highlighter, and we can choose to highlight the good things, and that takes work, that takes time, it takes determination and mindfulness to get it done.
So I like they said second chances, and it's never too late.
Yeah.
For some people, it's been a long time. How about can they do to bring it back? So starting with looking at pictures, what else?
Right. Having date nights, going on little mini vacations. It doesn't have to be a faraway spot. Sitting down and thinking about projects that they'd like to do together, whether it's redoing a room or working in a garden or starting to take pottery, who knows, something that they would enjoy doing together, and cultivating that common interest. It's fun. It's fun to have fun with your spouse. Again, this word priority keeps coming up in my mind. It's the priority. If we realized how essential it was to the health of our souls to make that unity, to make the soul seamlessly into one soul, I think that we would put more effort into it. But I think that for the most part, people aren't tuned into the fact that marriage is the priority in their lives. I'm going to be I'm going to be an amazing coach. I'm going to be an amazing mother, Bubby. I'm busy, doing wonderful things for the community. Honey, I'll be with you in just a minute. And yet we know that, for example, the Rebbe said that the time that he spent with the Rebbetzin was as non-negotiable in his life as putting on tefillin. So we get the sense that it's really important. I'm just still thinking for the people, and the questions that came in, just overall questions, that we can go to the detailed ones. It's too late. 30 years ago, we were excited about each other, and then life came, and life came, and life came, and life continued, and life continued, and now, how do we break that? So as I said, time is the biggest break. The other thing is attitude, understanding that this is number one. When you know that, you can almost model those early shidduchim. So tell me, what's your vision? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? What things have given you the greatest pleasure up until this point? Curiosity is just amazing. And I think that when the woman initiates the curiosity, that's the way it's most likely to succeed, because as we know, women were given 9 portions of communication and men were given 1. So we're going to wait until they come out of their cave and finish learning Rambam and everything else to sit and have quality time with us. It's not going to happen unless we initiate it. So something that I do with my dating clients is that I created a set of cards called Convos, which is for daters, conversation starters. I think that, I don't know if all the cards would work well for here, but many of the cards would still work. Or just having, if you can't come up with conversations on your own, I think that the randomness of the card asking the question, or turning it into a game, I think is another way to start these conversations. And there can be some really deep conversations, or all kinds of conversations, and some conversations may be a bust. It may be that you really don't have much to discuss, or like you've been thinking about it, but he hasn't. So he doesn't have much to contribute just yet. And you can start the conversation, or just something that's just not his topic. Right. John Gottman has an app. He's got an app of cards. You have to be a little bit discerning in which of the piles you open up. Some of them they might be fun, but I'm not sure. Align with our values, right? So yes, but he's got a lot of good questions on there as well. I like the randomness of cards, like not that you thought of it before. I like that it's the card that's asking the question. I think that really changes the dynamic a little bit. Another thing that's not so random, but I think it's also a nice exercise is 5 things I like about you. That's nice. That's really sweet. It's really sweet, and it's. I always suggest to my clients that they do these things in the morning, not at night. because we're tired. You have a full day doing whatever you're doing, and then you're going to be like this cute, bubbly little,
But I think there's something nice about night because you never know where it can lead.
Oh, well, that's true as well. That's true as well. And that's another, speaking of not knowing where it could lead. I know that from so many of my clients, I see that they are intimate much less frequently. When I say much less frequency, whoa, baby. I mean, much less frequency. And it's like, a guy knows what his obligation is in terms of putting his tefillin on every day. He has an obligation to satisfy his wife. I don't think that there's any age requirements on this. It's kind of tough to say this the way I want it to come out, but a certain amount of our psychology is what I would call post-Holocaust psychology. It's based on the fear of doing the wrong thing instead of a love psychology, which is based on how can I make it more exciting? How can we be, more in love? I just went to a beautiful seminar with Rachel Goldman, and she spoke about the fact that that in terms of intimacy, there's absolutely nothing that's taboo for a woman to do as long as she's with her husband and she's not Nita and they're alone. I would imagine that there are so many possibilities, so many things that we haven't tried or haven't had the courage to talk about. But who are we talking to? It's our husband. And what does our husband want more than anything? He wants to make his wife happy. A man's joy is making his wife happy. And Laura Doyle talks about all the men that she sees in the malls with their wives' purses, their bags strung over their shoulder, schlepping from store to store. That's not natural. That's just not natural. Why is a guy doing that? He just wants to make his wife happy, but he's also not psychic. So we need to be able to tell our husbands what makes us happy. In the bedroom and out of the bedroom, and I think that's a very that authenticity and that level of trust. You've been with this guy for 25 years already. If you can't trust him now, when are you going to be able to trust him? And take a chance. Take a chance. Fall backwards. He's going to be there to catch you. But you have to take that chance. You have to initiate that fall. And then from that builds ever deepening authenticity in the relationship. And the new book I'm working on right now, I quoted Elizabeth Gilbert, who said, to be fully seen by somebody, then and be loved anyhow, this is a human offering that can border on the miraculous. Wow. Now, there's only one way that we can make that happen, and that's by being authentic. And I think that when we're not authentic, and I want to modify that as well, but when we're not authentic, I don't think that we're allowing our husbands the opportunity to be really intimate with us emotionally, physically, intellectually, spiritually. Talk about, wow, I just started to do this new thing in my davening. I started during Sphira to do, when I say Harini, I hereby take it upon myself to love my fellow Jew as myself. I say it so fast, and then I go on right to the next tefillah so fast. And I was reading a book by Barbara Fredrickson called Love 2.0. And she talks about loving kindness meditation. She talks about the idea of just closing your eyes, envisioning somebody that you really love, and I'm suggesting your husband, and thinking about some of their good points. Don't spend too long on it, but just come up with one or two, and then think to yourself, may he be blessed with happiness. May he be blessed with health. May he be blessed with safety. May he be blessed to live at ease. And And then may I be blessed with happiness and health and safety. May my family be blessed with happiness and health and safety. May all the Jewish people be blessed with happiness and health and safety. Now I go after, to Macho Boo, because I feel like I've done justice to this concept of, loving my fellow as myself at that point in time.
So I think that I love that. And I think the next part of that is, what can I be part of? How can I bring some love and safety to him? And then to all the other people you mentioned, but let's just start with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing I can do today?
I can be careful of what comes out of my mouth.
That's a good starting point.
Yeah. So I can catch him doing something good and thank him for it. I love you, you're wonderful, doesn't work any better, I think, for husbands than it does for children. I love the fact that my husband, we just came running in from doing the Shabbos shopping together, which we never used to do. That's something that is a privilege that comes with midlife. It can be so much fun. And we bought things that we never would have thought to buy before. It was a very, adventurous kind of a trip. We wound up making hot dogs for dinner, which is so out of our general field of action. We're into natural foods and healthy lifestyle, et cetera, and so forth. So we found, this is not an advertisement, we found some Jack's hot dogs without any nitrates or anything in them. And we came home from the store, and he knew that I needed to get ready for this Zoom, and he ran in and made dinner and served it like so beautifully. And it was just like, I love the fact that you take care of me.
Right. I think that comes with also understanding, like, not just thank you, but like how it's helping me, or how it's enriching my life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can take, I didn't have time to chew and finish the sentence because I needed to get onto the Zoom, but absolutely, if you said, I love the fact that you share some of the work in the house with me. I've been doing it for a really long time, and I feel like when you take some of it off my shoulders, I get this opportunity to express myself in so many other ways, and it's exciting, and I appreciate the fact that you get that and that you're there for me.
I love that. I think that, firstly, some people don't get to the fullness of the compliment. Like, they don't fully think out all the details of how their life was enriched. Instead of just saying thank you for washing the dishes, I love what you said, that by you taking it over, I'm able to do something me or my. And some people don't even go to that level of thinking and then expressing it. So there's two levels. And then when he hears that, he sees how we're so interrelated, and so we each enhance each other's lives. And then the other thing is that what can I do to make his life easier, better? And I think it goes round and round once we start really becoming more cognizant of how we can be so helpful to each other's life.
Yeah. In terms of what can I do to make things better? How can I make an environment that's psychologically safe for my husband? So some of us, I think, got confused, and we married our children and we mothered our husbands. So we learned over time how important it was to praise our kids for the things that they had done that were positive, and to love them unconditionally. Did anyone ever look at their child and say, "Are you really my beshert?" We don't do that, but we do tend to have that thought, every once in a while going through our heads, because we have a Yetzer Hara, and doubt is a natural part of life, and 75% of our thoughts are negative thoughts. The trick is, can we catch ourselves in those places and say, well, is this good for me? Is this good for my life? Is this good for my family? Is this Yetzer Hara? If somebody were filming my thoughts right now, would I be okay with what I'm thinking? We all think negative things. And there's nothing to feel guilty about when those initial thoughts come in, but we don't have to dance with them. We can dismiss them. We can, as I said in my very first Chabad.org video, we can choose our thoughts like we choose tomatoes. Some are too green, some are too mushy, some are just right. And the ones that are just right are the ones we want to bring home and we want to bring into our relationship. So I saw that the 80-20 rule comes up in so many places in life. So I saw the other day the 80-20 rule applied towards child rearing. It said 80% of the things that you say to your child have to be positive and affirming, so that you can take that 20% to be honestly, lovingly critical of the things that they do that are not so. When they're teenagers, the ratio goes to 90% of the things that you say to them need to be positive and empowering and uplifting. 10% of them can be more critical and have some control involved with them. When it comes to your husband, 100% of what you say
ought to
be positive. And that doesn't mean that we don't find the time to talk about things that bother us, but it's got to be done, it's got to be done in the right way. Like, why do you always leave your socks on the floor is not the same message as, I love it when the bedroom's clean. I get such a feeling of peace inside, That's what
language.
Yeah, it's a language. And last week, 2 weeks ago, I don't know, Pesach makes everything such a mishmash in my head, but we were learning about the concept of lashon hara and the idea of tsaras. And one of the questions was, of course, in the commentaries, why such a big deal over what somebody says? There's so many other things that could have been such a bigger deal that he didn't have to go out of the camp for a week and go in front of the Kohanim and all the rest of the preparations he had to make to be whole again and to be forgiven. Because we are speakers. We are the people who speak. Our connection with God is established through words. Our connection as Jews is Shema, is what we hear, and so speech is capable of being the holiest, most connecting thing in our life, and therefore it's also capable of being really damaging. And so thinking about the fact that we do have the power, it's one level easier than choosing our thoughts. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's one level easier because at least you have a little time to think about it before you open your mouth, or we should get into the habit of taking a little time to think about it before we open our mouths. Is what I'm about to say going to bring us closer or further apart? And if the goal is closer, and that is the goal, and that's the whole goal, connection. So that's the choice. Connecting.
You can also stop your thoughts, but you can also stop your words right in mid-sentence, and as you realize that this is not really going in the best interest of the relationship.
Yeah. Another thing, as I said before, I have many clients who are not physically intimate with their husband, sometimes for a year, sometimes for more. And they come to me and they can't figure out what's wrong with their marriage.
Well,
I really suggest to women that to touch their husbands often. Touch is Rice University did an amazing study on the soothing effect of touch, in terms of just calm, in terms of raising our immune system, in terms of just feeling loved and belonging, and soothing a pain. We talk about what's the mystery of a little kid who comes running to their mother with a skinned knee, and she gives him a kiss and he stops crying. It's touch. Touch is magical. And so initiating touch with their husbands, just walking over to them and rubbing their shoulders, or holding their hand, or sneaking behind them and giving them a kiss. Most of us aren't counting anymore. We can't. And most of us don't have a lot of kids in the house that we need to be so careful about what we do where. They love it. They love it. And their little boy comes out, and their little boy is really very attractive. It's just cute. And mothers love little boys. And it's okay. We've been told we're the reincarnation of the women who left the Mitzrayim, and that we had the faith and the trust that things were going to work out well, and the guys were downtrodden and gloomy and depressed, So I don't think that I think that that's a polite way of saying that we, as this generation that lives in a very, very deep, dark gullus, have a certain level of insight and stamina and connection to higher values, or connection to higher thoughts than the men do. They're just, it's harder. That's not a judgment thing, and that's not a better than and a worse than thing. It's just a difference of disposition kind of thing. So I think that we need to be nurturers and initiators, and just get in there and add more positivity to the kettle. It's not a one-way street. It's like, when you're walking down the street and you smile at somebody, generally speaking, they're going to smile back at you, even if they have no idea in the world of who you are or why you're smiling. So how much more so when it's the other half of your soul?
Right. And I think there's a lot to talk about. And so we actually did a couple episodes on intimacy after menopause, or after no more mikvah. So I'll definitely put the link to the show notes, because there's enough to talk about, and we spoke about that topic.
Okay.
So I think what you said, it adds to what we said there. So I think that all of that just keeps building on different ways to look at bringing intimacy back into our lives, or more into our lives, or just equal amount. Some people, because there's no mikvah, there's no actual schedule. So, right. But let's look to the show notes for the links to that. I want to talk about something that you said earlier about, as far as doing things together and the things that you both like. I want to counter that a little bit and try new things, even if you don't know that you like it. Yeah.
That's what you and I are about to do together.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. It's just, I love the idea of adventure, try. There's something exciting about midlife, is that most of us, and are not so attached to outcomes. The idea is to try new things, and there's so much change happening anyway. So let's try new things. It's not that the world is changing. So there's lots of new things, new museums, new technology in the museums. There's new kayaks, there's lighter kayaks. There's just so many different things that we can try, and knowing that we're trying and that we may not like it, but we're trying. Kind of says, so if it's a bust, it's a bust, but we're trying. We're not trying to get something that's amazing. We're trying for the trying's sake of trying something new.
Right. We're not attached. We're not attached. We're in the moment, and it's experiment. It's going to be fun.
It's adventurous. And I think that's kind of like when we were like very young, and we tried lots of different things. And talking about your example back at the preschoolers, kids weren't so inhibited. And I think that we can get back to that.
Yeah.
Especially with our spouse.
Sure. We had a backlog of arguments and hurt and harsh words, barbs that are accumulated within our heart and our mind. That makes it difficult. But John Gottman, who is, I guess, the king at this point when it comes to healthy marriages, and talks about the fact that a good marriage is not determined by how many arguments a couple has. In fact, he says that when you come into a relationship, about somewhere between 65 and 70% of the things that you believe in that are different from the things that he believes in are going to be the same 65 to 70% 40 years later. So don't waste too much time trying to change his mind. But so those are kind of the non, they're not irreconcilable differences. But that's not what holds keeps a couple apart. A couple can, have things that they don't see eye to eye on, and lots of things that they don't see eye to eye on. I mean, the very fact that a man is married to a woman, we're like two different creatures. It's like, it's amazing how in a certain sense, how little we have in common to start with. So it's about learning to, respect his differences, not to realize, I love this little serenity prayer that says, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the people I can, and the wisdom to know that that's just me. I can't change anybody else in the world. And yet we spend so much time trying to reshape our husbands, whatever their choice of shoes or their posture at the Shabbos table, whatever it is. We have all of these ideas in our head as to how they should be. It's a good thing they don't share with us all their ideas about how they think we should be, because that's not who they should be. They should be who they are, and we should figure out that we need to be on a high enough level to respect them and appreciate them for their differences, not that they're shadow images of us. We don't need to have married either one of ourselves.
I think that by the time we get to married 25, 30 years, and we see that they're not going to change, and then, that's just is. So now it's a matter of what are we going to do about the just is.
Right.
It's just accept, like you said, just accept. I want to add to that to forgive ourselves for all those trying to change for all those years, because I find that for myself in certain aspects and the other people I speak to, there's I can't believe I did that for 25 years. And that kind of, it still hovers over. And I think just sort of we have to forgive ourselves for what we did or didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And every morning is really a fresh morning. I know that our memory still hold on to it, but really it's a fresh start. It really could be a fresh start, whether it's forgiving ourselves and or forgiving them without having to, as I say, I forgive you for it, but just let it go, because forgiveness is a lot of times for ourselves. We don't have to announce our forgiveness. It's our forgiveness is in ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. There was a very well-respected healer who used to come to Florida every winter for a few weeks. He had letters from the Rebbe. He was endorsed by a lot of people in his work. And I never actually went to him because it was really expensive and I didn't really want to spend the money at that point in time. But a lot of people that I worked with had gone to him, and or friends of mine had gone to him, and I asked them all what he told them. So this was my, kind of side deal. So he told them, many different things, of course, depending on who they were and what their needs were. But he told everybody he spoke to the same two things as well. He said, you need to dance in your room, and you need to forgive yourself before you go to sleep at night. And what about the dance in your room part? Because the forgive I get. I'm just wondering what he's talking about when he says dance in your room, like literally. Yeah, literally. Music and movement are tremendous balms to the soul, and exercise. I mean, the Rambam said you had to, exercise every day before you ate. He said that's what it means when it says that that man will eat by the sweat of his brow. It's not. Yes, it means he was going to have to start digging in the fields because we'd been expelled from the garden. But it also meant that the Rambam was saying you should exercise until your face turns a little bit red before you sit down to have breakfast in the morning. Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So meaning like exercise before breakfast.
Yeah.
Like with the
So
sunrise.
yeah. So that's one of the suggestions that I have in my book is taking sunrise walks with your husband, doing sunrise yoga with your husband. Sunrise is such a spiritual time. It's so powerful. It's like this rebirth, and you're kind of celebrating the rebirth of your relationship, and it becomes like a ritual, to be some.
And generally the streets are quieter.
Yeah.
There's no distraction. That the phones should not be busy at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30. It should really be an easier time in a way to just be the two of you. That's so interesting about the sunrise. I mean, I go walking the sunrise alone. I think I find that as meditative, but the idea of going with my husband at that hour would be an interesting way. I've never, that could be interesting.
Yeah, try it. Let me know.
Okay, so this question came in. I just wanted to ask you about it. Here we go. We never had great communication or deep discussions. And now that there's a little bit more time, we don't have those conversations. I can have great conversations with my friends and colleagues, but I can't have good conversations with my husband. Is it okay that I spend most of my time with other people, or should I be trying to deepen our relationship at this point?
Yes. Yes and yes. It's super important for women to have nice, happy, healthy relationships with other women and to go out and do their thing with their friends. Super important. I mean, aside from the fact that you produce oxytocin and all the rest of the stuff that it talks about in the good books, it's just such a safe, happy place. And we're not talking about laughter therapy, but laughing is, just such a wonderful, wonderful, healthy thing to have as part of your day. It even stimulates, the stomach muscles and the digestive system. Laughing is so good. So yes, go out with your friends and have a great time. But yes, work on coming home and sharing some of the things that you might have talked about, or figuring out, I'm curious, what I don't even know what you think about all day. What are you thinking about? Tell me something that, like, you really just, if we could do anything in the whole world together, what would you want to do? If we didn't have to think about money, time, anything else in the whole world, what would you want to do with me? I would love to hear your answer to that question. If you had another hour every day to, that was just like your hour for you, how would you use it? These are just like shut up questions. They're nice, they're nice. Tal Ben-Shahar says, he's got the titanium rule. The golden rule is do not do as unto anybody else as you would not want them to do unto you. The titanium rule is do not do or say to the people who are close to you things that you would not say to somebody who's a stranger or far away. So,
right. So I think on the flip of that is like some topics that you may love to talk about, and you could talk about with your girlfriends, and they may not be like girlfriend topics. They could be really deep conversations that some people are able to have conversations with their husband, but if it's not a topic that he can contribute to, because it's not on his, it's just not interesting to him, or he doesn't have much, he has a lot of other interesting things, then don't try to force those conversations.
Right.
Have those conversations with somebody else. You don't have to have all types of conversations with your husband.
Yeah, he can't fill all of your needs. Yeah. We're communal creatures. We're long marriage creatures, but we're also communal creatures, and it goes together very much so.
So if it's something that you do in work, let's say someone is a scientist and he's just not, he doesn't understand what you're talking about, you can't really expect him to get into those conversations.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm going to put a silk net in my shade on the top over here with some baby hairs. You think I should do that, honey? It's like, what are you talking about?
What did you just say?
Exactly. It's a different it's a different language. It's a different
It's like
world.
the joke about the colors. What color, I was thinking of getting a mauve. What are you talking about? What color is that? What colors is that?
It's taupe. No, it's tan. No, it's not. It's taupe. It's clearly taupe. Don't you see the gray undertones in the background? That's taupe.
Undertone, what does the undertone even mean, right?
Exactly, right.
But I'm talking about also some topics that some people are able to talk to their husbands about, and it's just not going to be, there's just not going to be.
So one of the things that we started doing, and sometimes we do it religiously, sometimes it just doesn't happen. We started doing Epidoses together.
So you're learning together.
We were learning together in the morning. Yeah, you and I are both involved in happiness studies, and we speak about 5 aspects of whole being. One of them is spiritual, one of them is physical, one of them is intellectual, one of them is relational, and one of them is emotional. Finding someplace intellectual that you can work with with your husband as a project, maybe it has to be something that's very spelled out, like learning a specific part of the Torah together on a daily basis. It can be learning French cooking. It can be learning medieval philosophy, Jewish history, finding something that you would both be interested in. Wow, I think most of us have a pretty scattered understanding of Jewish history, for example. It's fascinating. Yeah. What a cool thing to take a book and make it a project, to sit with your husband and learn it together.
Or podcasts. What I find is that you can each take it one from a book, one from a podcast, and discuss it.
Yeah.
And what can we learn from that? I mean, I love that idea of history, because there's so many wonderful podcasts and so many wonderful books that came out since I was in high school. Yeah. And there's a lot of, so I love the idea of Jewish history, but again, that might not work for some wife or some husband, or the two of them together may just not. But the idea of, I think what a theme throughout is find those things, find those activities, find those topics, and knowing that the idea of trying means that something is not going to work. So the first try may not work, the second try may not work. And I think that's, in general, the whole midlife phase is try new things, keep learning, keeping our mind excited about learning things. I think it really keeps the mind young.
Yeah.
And at the same time, some things just won't take. Some things just won't really work. And that's also, I think, part of it is the adventure. It's not only the learning, the adventure of learning.
Right. So that's, be prepared to be resilient, be prepared to change, be prepared to say, okay, what is option B? This is not working. And I mean, perfect, example, my husband is not an audio learner. He reads, and he reads volumes. He does read volumes. And I am such an auditory learner. I love to talk. I love to listen. I love to chat, converse. So I could be listening to a fabulous podcast and say, honey, you have to hear this. This is like amazing, and he'll tune in wanting to make me happy, which is what he wants to do, and he'll be there for 2 minutes, and then I see his mind is going someplace else and he's doing something else. And I'm thinking, I at that point, I have 2 choices. I could say, you're not listening. Oh, so that really makes him want to share with me, right? Or I could just be happy that he took that 2 minutes to try and tune in and see the good in that. I'm big on gratitude notebooks. I'm very big on gratitude notebooks. So I like to write in my gratitude notebook some nice thing that's happened between my husband and I, and then when that day comes, which inevitably it does, when I think that everything that he's doing is wrong, and everything he is wrong, I can look back in my gratitude notebook and look at how gentle and adorable he was with the grandchildren, how he surprised me with X, Y, or Z, and think to myself, you have to look at the whole picture. You have to look at the whole picture and think to yourself, it's kind of like there's this spiritual GPS. Our goal is to become closer and closer and closer. And if our thoughts or our words or our actions are taking us in the other direction, it's time to say recalculate.
Right.
You know, that's not our destination. Our destination is to be unified.
I mean, we've been speaking for almost an hour, and I think that there's so much more to talk about. I think that let's just go with the final thoughts. Maybe we can do this a second time, or part 2 or part 3, but let's just kind of wrap this part up. If anyone has any questions, they can definitely send it in the chat right now, or we can continue the conversation in our Facebook group. But do you have anything, a final thought for, or a wrap up of what we were talking about today?
Yeah. When I was talking about John Gottman, talking about how the determining factor of a good marriage is not how many times a husband and wife disagree about things or how many things they disagree on, but rather, do they have repair tools? Do they know how, when things are going the wrong way, to turn it around and put in a little humor or give a little hug or have some kind of little in-joke that goes between them, and that, I mean, we would call that in a broader sense just forgiveness, acceptance and forgiveness. And it's just very important to concentrate on, not, oh my gosh, we he's cheap, I like to spend money, I like to dance, he hates music, whatever. Fine. But how what is it you have together? Those are the things we have to think about. What is the big picture? What do we have together? And how successful can we be in being like resilient and letting go of stuff that bothers us? I think a lot of that comes from self-care, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that one of the big keys to having a good union is taking care of yourself. That's the next
healthy people in the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's a nice way to end that. So thank you so much, Frumma. How can someone reach you as a coach? Where can they get you?
They can, I made it really simple. My Gmail address is coachfrumma with 2 M's at Gmail, and that's the easiest way to get to me. And I'm actually going to be doing a marriage renewal workshop in June. It's called the June Bride.
Oh, I like that.
So that'll be coming up, and I'll send it to you so that you can put it out.
Sure, that on, yeah.
It's a Zoom. It's 4 sessions. Yeah.
All right. So Frumma, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And I look forward to our projects together and for more conversations.
Beautiful. Thanks, Devora. Have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye. Be well. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, everybody. Good Shabbos.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me in another fascinating conversation about midlife. If you'd like to reach me, Devora Krasnianski, to talk about your midlife or anything else, you can reach me at jewishmidlife@gmail.com. You can also find us on our website, jewishmidlife.com, and follow us on Jewish Midlife on Instagram or Facebook, and join our conversations in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. And share what we're doing with your friends and others in the midlife phase.